Have you ever worn a pair of shoes and almost forgotten you were wearing them? They were light, soft, and comfortable from the first step. No pain, no breaking in, just simple comfort. Today, I want to tell you the story of a brand that started with a very basic question. Why are most shoes so uncomfortable? And why are they so bad for the planet? This is the story of Allbirds. The story begins with a man named Tim Brown. Tim was not a fashion designer. He was not a shoe expert. He was a professional soccer player from New Zealand. For many years, Tim played soccer at a high level. He trained every day, traveled a lot, and spent most of his time in sports shoes. Like many athletes, he cared deeply about how shoes felt. But there was something that always bothered him. Most athletic shoes were made from plastic materials. They were stiff, they didn't breathe well, and they often felt uncomfortable, even after weeks of use. At the same time, Tim grew up in New Zealand, a country famous for sheep and wool. Wool was everywhere. People used it for clothing, blankets, and outdoor gear. One day, Tim started to wonder, why isn't wool used in shoes? Wool is soft. It keeps you warm in cold weather and cool in hot weather. It breathes naturally. And it comes from nature, not oil. But in the shoe industry, wool was almost never used. This simple question stayed in his mind for years. After retiring from professional soccer, Tim moved to the United States. He studied design and business, but he still felt like an outsider. He didn't know much about factories, supply chains, or shoe production, but he had an idea, and sometimes that is enough to begin. Tim wanted to make the most comfortable shoe in the world. Not a performance shoe, not a fashion shoe, just a simple, everyday shoe that felt good. And he wanted it to be better for the environment. At that time, most shoe companies focused on speed, style, or technology. Very few talked about sustainability. Tim believed that comfort and sustainability could exist together. To turn his idea into reality, he needed help. That's when he met Joey Zwillinger. Joey was very different from Tim. He was an engineer with a deep understanding of materials and science. He had a PhD and had worked in clean technology. Where Tim brought the idea and vision, Joey brought the technical knowledge. Together, they started experimenting. Their first big challenge was wool. Not all wool is the same. Some wool is itchy. Some is thick and heavy. Some doesn't last long. They spent months testing different types of wool. They talked to farmers. They learned about how sheep were raised and how wool was processed. Finally, they found a special type of merino wool. This wool was incredibly soft. It was light. It could stretch. And it didn't smell easily. But using wool for shoes was risky. Factories were not used to working with it. Machines were not designed for it. Many manufacturers said it wouldn't work. Still, Tim and Joey pushed forward. They decided to keep the design extremely simple. No bright colors, no big logos, no complicated shapes. Just a clean, minimal shoe. When they finally made their first prototype, it didn't look special. But when people tried it on, something interesting happened. They smiled. The shoe felt different. It felt soft right away. There was no pain, no stiffness. People didn't want to take them off. In 2016, they officially launched the brand and named it Allbirds. The name was inspired by New Zealand, where birds evolved without natural predators. The idea was simple and natural, just like the shoes. Instead of opening many stores, Allbirds started online. This allowed them to talk directly to customers. They listened carefully to feedback. They made small improvements again and again. At first, growth was slow. Not many people had heard of them. They didn't spend much money on advertising. But something powerful happened. Customers started talking. They told friends. They posted online. They said things like, "These are the most comfortable shoes I've ever worn." Word spread quietly, but steadily. Soon, people in Silicon Valley started wearing Allbirds. Then investors noticed. Then, the media noticed. But Tim and Joey were careful. They didn't want to grow too fast. They didn't want to lose their values. Sustainability was not just a marketing word for them. They measured the carbon footprint of every product. They shared this information openly, even when it didn't look good. They also made surprising decisions. Instead of protecting their material innovations, they shared them with other companies. They believed that fighting climate change was more important than competition. This was unusual in the business world. As the brand grew, challenges grew too. Some people said the shoes were too plain. Others said they were too expensive. Some questioned whether sustainability really mattered. Tim and Joey listened, but they didn't panic. They stayed focused on their original idea. Make things better. Make them simpler. Make them more honest. Over time, Allbirds expanded their product line. They added new materials, like sugarcane-based soles. They made shoes for different seasons and uses. They also opened physical stores, but kept the same calm and simple feeling. Walking into an Allbirds store didn't feel like shopping. It felt relaxed, quiet, almost like home. Today, Allbirds is a global brand. Their shoes are worn by millions of people around the world. But at its heart, the company is still driven by the same small question. Why can't things be better? The story of Allbirds is not about chasing trends. It's not about becoming the biggest or the loudest. It's about noticing a small problem, caring deeply about it, and having the courage to try something different. Tim Brown didn't start with experience. He didn't start with money. He started with curiosity. And sometimes, that is where the best ideas come from. So next time you put on a pair of shoes, think about this. Comfort is not a luxury. Simplicity is not weakness. And small ideas can walk a very long way.